evening and welcome to Newton Talk. My name is Jackie Morrissey, and tonight's very special guest is a good friend of mine who's very active in helping veterans, especially returning veterans. He heads up a program called Veterans Upward Bound. Barry, good to see you again. Thank you for coming over here.
Thanks for having me on your show, Jackie. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I read that article. I read your letter to the editor in December 6th Boston Globe. I said to Brenda Lowe, we got to get him on because I know him personally. He's a good man, and he's very, very active helping veterans. And I know there's a lot of things going on.
There's always a lot of things going on in the veterans community, Jackie.
Would you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, because a lot of people in Newton know you.
Well, I was born and raised in Dorchester, in Mattapan, went to English high school, and I went into the Army in 1967, came out in 1970, and went to the University of Massachusetts at Boston, where I got my degree, and done a variety of different jobs, and for the last 8 years, I've been working at the Veterans Upward Bound program back at UMass Boston. I do a lot of teaching, I do writing, and I find myself back at UMass Boston, where I actually started in 1966, but wasn't really ready to go to college and got tossed out and ended up in the Army, and which is one of the reasons why I enjoy working at Veterans Upward Bound so much, because that's the story a lot of our students have. They tried to go to college, they weren't ready, they ended up in the military, they got out, and now they want to go to college. And the Veterans Upward Bound program is funded by the Department of Education to help get them ready for it.
Yeah. How'd you like the military?
Well, I had a pretty interesting experience, I have to say. I never really fashioned myself as a military kind of a person, and never really thought about making it a career. But I have to say, you know, I learned that I could do things that I never thought I could do. I got a lot of good discipline. I did jobs that really helped me mature from the ages of 19 to 22. So I think overall it was a valuable experience for me.
I feel likewise. I went in the service at 17,
Mm-hmm.
and I was 3 years in the military. And my two brothers also were Vietnam veterans. And I'll tell you one thing, it had a lot to do with my success in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a fresh kid when I went in the service.
I don't believe that.
I knew it all. But how are the veterans today coming,
well,
as opposed to when you were in the service?
Well, there are a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
I think the country is a little bit more what some people call veteran friendly, at least on the surface, in terms of appreciating people's service. One major difference between today and when we went in is that there's
no. When you went in.
When I went in.
When I went in, it was veterans friendly.
Okay.
When you were in the Vietnam War, they turned on us.
Right. Well, I wasn't even going to talk about that. I was going to mention that there was a draft in those days.
Uh-huh.
So if you weren't going to college, you became what was called 1A, which meant that you were going to be drafted if they needed you.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of the reasons I enlisted, because I became 1A and I figured I'd outfox them and join up before they drafted me. But today it's an all-volunteer military, which has some advantages, obviously, but also has some disadvantages if you're fighting wars on several fronts. So a lot of the younger veterans I see, and not all people going to Iraq and Afghanistan are real young, some of them are middle-aged people, but a lot of the younger people I see who are coming out of a combat experience remind me a lot of my friends who were coming back from Vietnam, mm-hmm. In terms of severe emotional issues. Today, with the advances in medical technology, we have veterans who would have died on the battlefield in Vietnam, but were saved and resurrected, given new limbs, a year or two of rehab, and now tossed back into society and expected to get along. So we're seeing a lot of people come back with severe issues. At the same time, they want to get an education, because even more so today than in 1970 or in the 1950s, a college education is important for the most part to get ahead.
So how does your Veterans Upward Bound program help them, work with them?
We're funded to serve 120 veterans a year, and our mission is to prepare eligible veterans, people who fall under the eligibility guidelines of our program, for post-secondary education. The eligibility guidelines are fairly simple: 180 days active duty, better than a dishonorable discharge, and either meet the low income standards that the federal government sets, which is 150% of the federal poverty guidelines, meaning that if you're a single person and you make $17,000 or less of taxable income, you're considered low income for the purposes of our program, or be what's called a first-generation college student, meaning that when you were growing up in the house, till you left home, neither of your parents had a 4-year college degree, so that neither of your parents could act as a role model for how to go to and succeed in college. Now, we're just a small part of a larger program called the Upward Bound program, which is a part of an even larger program called the TRIO programs. It's several different pre-collegiate programs to help mostly young people, middle school and high school students, prepare for college. But the Veterans Upward Bound program at UMass Boston, we do some initial counseling. We give the veteran, because we're required to, and I think it's a good idea, we give them a standardized test in math, reading, and writing skills, so that we can see how much preparation they're going to need before going to college. And this particular standardized test will show what grade level they're at with various skills. And then we'll set them up with classes that we conduct. We run classes 5 nights a week at UMass Boston. We have classes in math, writing, computer skills, lab science. We have a study skills class and a Spanish class. Each class is taught by a skilled instructor. Each class has teaching assistants who are usually undergraduate or graduate students at UMass Boston, a good number of whom went through our program and then went on to UMass Boston and now come back and tutor in our program. In fact, one of our math teachers went to our program, graduated UMass Boston, and now he's teaching algebra in our program. And we have 4 full-time staff, 3 other people besides myself, and we counsel the veterans, both educational counseling. We'll refer them if they need other kinds of counseling, and how to apply for financial aid, things of that nature. So after 1 or 2 semesters, about 85% of the people who finish our program go on to college.
So this is college preparation.
It's college preparation.
Now let me ask you this. This is not just for Iraq veterans. This is for any veteran.
It's any veteran who has served since, according to the regulations, since July 31st, 1955. So we can go fairly far back.
So you could get a veteran that's 60 years old.
We do get veterans that are in their 60s and beyond. As a matter of fact, we had a guy go through our program a number of years ago who stormed the beaches of Normandy, stayed in the military, got out, went to work in the post office in Hingham, was very active in his local veterans group, retired, and then at age 72 came to our program. Graduated our program and went to UMass Boston for 2 years and then unfortunately passed away. The American Legion post in his town has dedicated a scholarship in his honor. Every semester they award it to one of our students.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's an opportunity for even older vets.
That's right.
That maybe are a little shaky about their careers. That want to you know, better themselves a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. And UMass Boston's been very supportive of our program. They house us. But, for example, we have access to their career counselors. So we can bring career counselors into our classrooms to talk to our students about what types of careers are out there for particular types of majors that you might want to pursue. Because a lot of people come to our program, they're not exactly sure what kind of an academic road they want to take. They just know that they should go to college. So our program, part of what our program does is gives them some time to figure it out.
Yeah, no, there's something else. This is funded by the Department of Education?
Yes, Federal Department of Education.
What about the GI Bill? Is the GI Bill still active?
Yes, well, there's a new GI Bill that was passed in 2008. It's called the Post 9/11 GI Bill. Is the street name for it, and it's a really huge leap forward in GI Bill benefits from the GI Bill I used. I went to college on the GI Bill when I got out in 1970. The new GI Bill is reminiscent of the original GI Bill, the Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944, that really created the middle class in this country. That paid full tuition to any college that accepted you and gave you a stipend while you went, and 2.2 million veterans got bachelor's degrees and higher using that GI Bill, and another 2 or 3 million veterans got technical degrees. Nobody had any idea it would be so widely used. And more than 1 million professionals were created as a result of that original GI Bill. Well, the current GI Bill will pay the school directly an amount of money up to the most expensive state college in that state. So here in Massachusetts, UMass Amherst is about $16,500. So the new GI Bill for somebody coming out of the service now who has served at least 3 years since 9/11 on active duty.
Oh, this is only from 9/11.
From 9/11, yeah. If you served, if you got out before 9/11,
I was getting excited.
Yeah, no, and if you've been out more than 10 years, you got nothing left.
Oh, really?
So it's for new veterans.
Yeah.
But again, it's a great step forward. There are 2 million veterans that are going to be eligible for this, who've served since 9/11. And even if you only served 6 months active duty, you're eligible for a portion of the new GI Bill. Not 100% of it, but maybe about 40% of it. And then it goes up to 3 years when you hit 100%. So you still get a pretty decent benefit, because along with paying the tuition to the school, it pays you a living stipend based on the zip code where your school is located. So if you come to UMass Boston, you'll get, for every month you're in school, you'll get a check from Department of Veterans Affairs for $2,100.
Wow.
You'll get your tuition paid, your fees paid, and you'll get $1,000 a year for books.
What an incentive for to go in the service.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, and the funny thing about it, the people who were opposing it when it was in Congress were saying that it would be a disincentive for staying in the service, and really weren't looking at the other side of it, that this is a way that you can get college paid for. And maybe, depending on your living situation, maybe not even have to work while you go to school.
Does the National Guard, is this,
yes.
they're entitled to this?
Yes. If
Reservists?
Yep, if they've been on active duty, sure.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's as I said, it's quite a giant leap. Now the downside of it is this, which I've been talking with people about, and why our program is so important. If you get out of the military and you're not sure what to do, and somebody says, "Hey, go over to Massasoit Community College," or what's the community college up here on Route 9?
Mass Bay?
Mass Bay. Sign up for 4 courses, and it'll get paid for, and you get $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
So you go and do it, and you don't pass the courses. Well, now you're in the hole for that money.
Oh, you owe, but you got to pay it back?
Well, no, you don't have to pay. You may not have to pay it back. Nobody at the Department of Veterans Affairs is sure yet.
Yeah.
But they think what they're going to say is, you're going to the next, when you go, the next time you go, you won't get benefits for those months.
Yeah.
You won't get that tuition and fees paid till you go and you handle it yourself, which will be, again, a disincentive for a lot of people to go back. So that's why we're trying to push the Department of Education to fund more programs like ours that can prepare veterans so that they won't do poorly when they go in.
I wonder if a lot of the veterans know about this.
No, well,
because
in theory, they should as they're getting out. But of course, a lot of times when you get, I remember when I was getting out, I just wanted them to check off that I was there and did what I was supposed to do, and then I got out of there. So that's an excellent question.
Well, I know a lot of young vets that are around town, and they're bouncing around from job to job. They don't have any direction.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this program would excite them. It's a good opportunity. How's the, what kind of a success are you having with the program?
Well, we serve about 120 veterans a year. We have a very high bar in our classroom. You can't fail out of the program. We never throw people out because they're not doing well. We constantly let people know, to use a sports analogy, we always liken our program to spring training. You know, the averages don't count. So if you're striking out, don't worry about it. It doesn't count. It's not going on your record. But about half the people who sign up for our program don't finish it for various reasons. They're just not ready.
Mm-hmm.
The half that do finish it, about 85 to 90% go on to college.
That's a good number.
Yep. And we've had people, we have somebody this semester who went to our program in about 2002 and dropped out, went off and did some things, and now he's coming back and he wants to try it again. And the nice thing about it is, according to the federal regulations, once you're accepted into this program, you're accepted forever. So let's say this guy's mother graduated from college, and when he applied to our program, he didn't make any money the year before. He was unemployed, didn't make any money, so he got accepted. He comes back to us now. Let's say he made $50,000 last year, and his mother graduated from college. Well, if that was his first time in our door, he wouldn't be eligible for the program. But since he applied before and was accepted, we can take him back.
Yeah. Can you hold a job and still get the stipend?
Oh, sure.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with anything. It's just your your
Wow.
benefit. It's your benefit, and it's a stipend. It's not income.
So, what else can you tell us about your program? The
Well-
eligibility, you gave us that fact.
All of our classes take place at UMass Boston, but over the last 2 or 3 years, we've expanded out our program to a few other places. We're working very closely with the Chelsea Soldiers Home. In the last 3 or 4 years, we've had probably 8 or 10 people a year go through our program who live at the Chelsea Soldiers Home. A lot of people think of soldiers' homes; they think it's a place to go to die. But it's not. It is for some, but it's not. It's not that true for many anymore. And in fact, a lot of younger veterans who come back and find themselves in various situations and don't have a place to live, move into either the Chelsea or the Holyoke Soldiers Home and live there for a while. And some of them pursue education while they're there. So we set up a computer lab. We got some donations of computers. We have 3 or 4 people who live at Chelsea who've been through our program and are now going to college, who are tutoring students there. And we do the same thing at the Brockton VA. We have a couple tutors who go down and give classes to people who are living at the Brockton VA, mostly disabled veterans. We're doing the same thing at the Bedford VA, and we're going to be starting a group over at the outpatient clinic by North Station this spring of having tutors of ours go over there and tutor veterans who are getting outpatient services. Up there, so we're very active, and there's a real call for us because veterans coming back and veterans who've been back for a long time, in some cases, realize the value of education. And what often we believe that education, I personally believe, and everybody who works in our program believes, education is very transformative, and we see it all the time. We see people who start to study and start to learn things, and all of a sudden they don't want to stop. They just want to keep going. And regardless where it takes them.
That's what happened in World War II after World War II.
Exactly.
And that's what created the greatest economic boom this country ever had.
That's right.
The world has ever had.
That's right.
Exactly. People don't understand that. But this is exciting. This is exciting. I mean, I don't qualify because I was in before 9/11, but I know a lot of young guys that are out there and they're bouncing around. To the post.
Well, have them call us at our number, 617-287-5870. Another thing I did want to mention, too, because as great as our program is, there are only 44 of us around the country, Veterans Upward Bound. Every 4 years, you have to go through a procedure of reapplying for your money, filling out a long, it's the federal bureaucracy, filling out a long application process, showing everything you've done. I have to file an annual report to the Department of Ed every year showing, almost how many cups of coffee a day I have in the office. The money that has been funding Veterans Upward Bound and programs like it for high school and middle school kids has been frozen for the last 5 years. So we're doing the same thing with the same amount of, we're doing with the same amount of money today that we were doing 5 years ago, and of course costs go up. We have to pay fringe benefits for our full-time employees and whatnot. So the challenge gets bigger and bigger, and what's been disappointing to a lot of us who work in this type of a program is that there are only 44 in the country, and so many more are needed. 44, and you can do the math. I'm not going to try to do it in my head, but 44 times 120, that's the number of veterans who get served. If you look at the census figures in the greater Boston area, by education and veterans.
That's 44 throughout the country.
Throughout the entire country.
So some states don't even have it.
Some states, right, some states have none. Some states have 2 or 3. They don't dole them out in any logical way. It's whoever applies for it and gets the most points in their competition. So, for example, we were the only Veterans Upward Bound for 30 years in New England, not just Massachusetts, in New England. Recently, they defunded 3 or 4 programs because they weren't doing what they're supposed to do, and they went down the list. And one of the programs on the list that they funded for the next couple of years is over at Suffolk University here in Boston. So we're going to have 2 in Boston, and some states have none. So, you know, again, there's no rhyme or reason to it, and we think there should be a rhyme or reason. Up in Maine, there are tons of veterans up in Maine. There are tons of veterans in New Hampshire. We get calls from Rhode Island all the time. Western Mass even could use a program.
It's a great program.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Charlie Rangel from New York, he's in favor of bringing back the draft. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think I'd love to say we don't need a draft, but I think it's the only fair thing to do. I'm on ground level, and I see people coming into my office wanting to go to college who've done 2, 3, sometimes 4 tours of combat duty, who are in the National Guard.
That's unbelievable.
They're in the National Guard.
That's disgraceful.
And
that's not fair.
That's exactly my feeling. It's a question of equity and a question of fairness and a question of going to the rest of the country and saying, listen, you know, this is what your elected officials have chosen to do in terms of foreign policy. How can you, in all good conscience, send the same people back time and time again? The VA will say that 25% of the people coming back have been diagnosed with PTSD. I can tell you, post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm sorry, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a serious impediment to getting things together in your life. I know a lot of Vietnam veterans who suffer from it. It's incurable. You never get over it. You have to learn to live with it. We know that the figure is much, much higher than that.
Well, I mean, if you're back in a combat situation 4 times in the time that you're in the service, in a short period of time, you're going to. It's absolutely sure you're going to be a victim of post-traumatic.
The number of
stress.
suicides of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans has been increasing every year for the last 5 years.
That's crazy.
And
I can't understand why. You know, just Charlie Rangel he may be onto something here.
Well, I think he's trying to honestly put it in front of the American people. Some people will say, well, if there's a draft, that'll be it. There won't be any more war. Well, I said, then so be it. I mean,
you know, I was talking to Tommy Concan this morning about this because I was telling him that you were coming on my show, and he said, you know, and he's kind of he was never in the service or anything like that, but he said, yeah, I think there should be a draft, but it doesn't have to mean that you serve in the military. You may serve for the U.S. Forestry, or in other words, but
Public
everybody
service.
serves.
Public service.
Public service. I think every young person should do some kind of public service. I think it makes good character.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
And it gives you a sense of being a citizen. What's being a citizen about? What is it about? Is it just paying taxes? I don't think so. I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
You know, next Wednesday there's going to be a rally in front of the State House that's being organized by the folks who run the Holyoke Soldiers Home, because the state is cutting about 5% from the Veteran Services budget in the state. They've closed down the pharmacy, the eye clinic, the outpatient clinic at the Holyoke Soldiers Home. The Chelsea Soldiers Home has had $1 million cut from its budget, and it's very frustrating for those of us. And I'm in education. My budget is federal.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. See, the State House has changed a lot. You don't have any veterans up there anymore serving. You know, they're all kids that have had the good life, gone to college, and they're mostly attorneys. And, you know, things have changed. They don't have the sensitivities to the vets. And believe me, it's not right.
Well, I hope people can take a look at the issue and at least be thinking about it. And because you often hear people say, well, you can never repay your veterans. Well, what does that mean?
This is a good payment.
Yeah.
This is a good program.
Yeah.
By the way, you're from Dorchester. Now,
Yes,
you know my old pal Julius Ansel.
Well, I remember Julius Ansel very well. I was just a little kid when he was a state representative, but everybody...
He was a state senator.
He was a state senator, too, I'm sorry. But everybody in Dorchester knew Julius Ansel. I used to see him come down my street with a snowplow in a blizzard and tell the plow which houses to plow in front of. He knew everybody in the entire Dorchester area.
You don't have representation like that anymore,
no,
do you?
You don't.
Huh? They're all big shots.
Yeah.
They're all too important to get out there in a blizzard.
Yeah.
So what else have we got, Barry? I'll tell you, you're involved in a good program here, and I'm surprised that the federal government hasn't cut any benefits for veterans, have they?
Well, the Department of Veterans Affairs on a national level has a backup of, I believe it's close to 100,000 disability claims.
Yeah.
So it's not even a question of cutting benefits. So many veterans don't even want to pursue the process.
Yeah. Let me ask you, do you use the VA?
Me? No, not personally.
I use the VA.
Yeah, good.
I'll tell you, what service, what a great place.
Well, I know plenty of people who work for the VA, and we've worked closely with, as I mentioned, the VA in Brockton, the VA in Jamaica Plain, and they're great people.
West Roxbury is unbelievable. I'll tell you, I love it. I'll tell you, I'm so grateful to have that available to me.
Right.
Me and my brothers. Believe me. So, Barry, it's a pleasure having you here. Anything else you
want
to
say? Well, I appreciate it, Jackie. And again, if any of your viewers here in the Newton area or wherever else,
do you have any Newton people participating?
We've had I'm not going to say we've had a ton of them, but we have a couple a year who come through our program who live in Newton or grew up in Newton. And certainly, if you know veterans, get them on the UMass Boston website and look us up, and we'll be glad to talk with you.
Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate you coming by, and I will be in touch.
Well, I appreciate your support, and I appreciate you having me here so we can let people know that this program exists.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, we want to wish our new mayor here in Newton, Teddy Warren, the best of luck. He'll do a good job, boy.